to start with premarital sex, what is it all about? So premarital sex is about physical intimacy between partners before marriage or before they enter into commitment of marriage. And with that, the first question that comes to mind with me is, what is sex to you guys? What about you, Kim?
So again, guys, this is my personal opinion. So for me, sex is one way of me to express my love to my partner or to a person. And also, for me kasi it's a basic need ng katawan mo eh. So it comes naturally talaga, di ba, Nel?
Yes, you're actually correct with that one. For me, sex, it's, on a perspective of a single person, it's really physical contact with someone else. Either that will be your intimate partner, or sometimes on this generation, like yung FUBU, diba? So it's still sex, technically. So yeah, physical contact, as Janelle mentioned, it's physical intimacy.
That's actually good points, and I respect that that's your personal opinion. But for me, sex really is something that's done between two people. So it can be, whether it can be personal or it can be casual. So that's sex for me. That's how I define it. But do you think, going on to, kasi di ba sa Pilipinas, we're very religious people, or I should exclude myself, but to others, it's very religious. So how do you think religion, as let's base it on yung mga majority of our religions, like yung mga iglesia, Roman Catholics, yung mga ano din, yung mga SDAs, and going as far as yung mga Muslim, how do you think premarital sex affects religion? Or how do you think religion affects the way we think about premarital sex?
Sa tingin ko, kasi most of us, lalo sa atin, Catholic, Christian, and hindi talaga, sa view natin, religiously, hindi talaga siya pwede, premarital sex. Siguro yun din yung reason kung bakit nagiging taboo yung topic na ganito. Kasi hindi tayo open. Kasi parang nasama na siya sa culture natin na because of that, kahit na gusto mo siyang gawin, kahit na okay lang siya, hold back ka nung culture na meron yung paligid mo. So, that is for me yung pinaka-affect ng ano. Hindi mo mailabas talaga, hindi mo talaga ma-express yung sarili mo freely.
Oh, I see. So basically, ang sinasabi mo is, because of our religious beliefs, it affects premarital sex negatively, yun ba yun?
In a way, how do we say this? Nakokontrol siya. Hindi naman siya yung super negative, pero hindi lang talaga siya, parang in our culture, pag open ka about this premarital sex, i-judge ka eh. Diba? So parang ang labas sa'yo is mostly negative ang feedback sa'yo.
Mostly negative. But if you're gonna ask me, super negative siya kasi, di ba, if you're that really religious, premarital sex is a big no-no. You have to do that. You have to do the thing after marriage itself. And definitely, if you do that before the actual sanctity of marriage, edi it's a no-no na agad. It's like you committed a sin. So, if you're gonna ask me how religion affects sex, I'm just gonna use the term sex, not premarital, but just the word sex. It's definitely, you're like putting sex in the shadow. Kasi if you will be including religion and sex all together, you have to get the marriage first before you can actually do the thing. For me, so definitely it's giving a very negative impact with sex and religion.
Which is, I agree naman kasi medyo may katotohanan yun kasi what we are, or what most Filipinos are, is they tend to focus on the religious aspect of things. So, what does the church say, or what does your congregation say? Na di ba kailangan mag-commit ka muna to a certain degree, which is so-called marriage, before we do such acts, which is sex. So this is somewhat a relatable question to what we're talking about. So then why, kasi hindi naman lahat ng Pilipino ay religious. Kasi tama na, ako hindi ako religious. Ewan ko lang sa inyo. Pero ako, I'm not a religious person, and I'm sure na meron ding iba. So, bakit ang ibang mga Pilipino, na although hindi sila religious, bakit hindi pa rin sila open to talking about sex or their sexual life?
Well, dahil nga kasi ng society natin mismo, nasa culture na eh. So parang ayaw na natin na ma-judge tayo. Even though na tayo mismo is not, for example, gaya natin, or gaya ng iba na hindi talaga believer, nandun pa rin yung connotation na madadala ka ng society mo. Kaya hindi mo siya ma-open up.
Maybe what you're trying to say is because Philippines proudly boast to be the only Christian nation in Asia. So, yung tanong ni Janelle, bakit parang hindi naman lahat believer or hindi naman lahat ganun ka-religyoso, pero bakit still yung percentage ng population na hindi ganun ka-religious is hindi pa rin ganun ka-open about premarital sex or about sex itself? Maybe because of the culture itself, di ba? Kung nakatira ako sa bansa na halos lahat ay napaka-relihiyoso and having sex before the actual marriage is a taboo, definitely hindi ko siya sasabihin openly na, hey, I'm sexually active. Kasi definitely, you're gonna receive a lot of judgment from other people, from society. So maybe that's the reason why most of the people right now, they're not really open about their status sa sex.
Actually, may point ka doon. And I think one thing that we have to highlight is yung background din natin. Kasi you can look at culture, you can look at religion, and you can look at these things. Pero what's gonna happen is that you're gonna have to think about how was your childhood bring up, di ba? Kasi kung this is what I believe na kung religious man ang yung childhood mo, your family, you're gonna be brought into the world na ganito dapat ang gagawin mo. As much as possible, stay away from it. Pero if you're brought into this world by a family that's open-minded, I think it will change your thoughts about yung parang how does sex work? How do you share your sexual life to your parents, to your own partner, to your own friends? So personally, what I think is that Filipinos are ashamed of spilling the truth dahil I think they're afraid of being stigmatized into the society na pag shinare ko to sa inyo, oy Nel, may nakasex ako kagabi. Oy Kim, ganito, ganyan. I think it kind of pinapababa mo ang sarili mo. Yung parang yung perception nila, yung perception ng others sa'yo. I'm not sure if you guys have the same thought.
Maybe you're kind of correct on that part. Kasi nga, di ba, as mentioned earlier, sabi mo nga, na-stigmatize kapag nag-share ka openly about your sexual life. So, since okay ang upbringing mo sa family mo, they're open-minded, kahit na gano'n ka ka-open-minded with your family, kapag share mo sa ibang tao, na hindi naman ganun ka open-minded, definitely there will be a friction between the two of you guys.
Actually, that's a valid point, Nel. And I would actually like to go to our next I'd say question. So, for you guys, what are the pros and the cons or advantages and disadvantages of premarital sex? So, I'll just start it off. Para sa akin, ang pros or an advantage nun is malalaman mo na kung sexually compatible kayong dalawa. Kasi di ba, if ever na nag-hold kayo for that long, let's say you're in a relationship for 3 years, never had sex with your partner, and then eventually nagpakasal kayo. And then, on your honeymoon, you eventually found out na hindi pala kayo sexually compatible, meaning to say, yung mga gusto niya, ayaw mo, at yung mga gusto mo, ayaw niyang gawin. So technically, that's gonna cause problems on the relationship. So what do you think are the other pros and cons when it comes to premarital sex?
Grabe naman yung sexually compatible. How do you define sexually compatible ba?
Parang yun nga, it's being like compatible with each other. Yung parang most of the stuff that you want to do during the act of sex, the other person also wants to do it willingly. Hindi yung mahal lang kita kaya gusto kong gawin to. Yung parang gusto niya talagang gawin to kasi gusto niyang gawin within herself or himself. And also, yung tipong hindi siya nafo-force na kasi asawa ko to, dapat kong gawin. So, kasi kung ganun ang thinking mo, eventually, as the day goes by, obviously, marami kayong magagawang ganun. It will affect you emotionally. That's what I really mean by yung sexually compatible. So, you have to be both comfortable and compatible when it comes to having intercourse with each other.
Yeah, we're doing the thing. Alright, thank you. Siguro naisip ko, one of the pros of having premarital sex, as we mentioned, una, sabi mo nga, ma-recognize nyo if you guys are compatible. Kaso, there's a lot of factors then that we have to consider. Kasi if you guys were gonna engage with premarital sex, we have to make sure then na we are fully educated about the stuff, di ba? Based on my knowledge dito sa Pilipinas, sexual education, hindi talaga siya ganun ka-advanced, hindi rin siya ganun what do you call this?
Kasi to be honest, kahit sa setup ng typical Filipino family, hindi naman siya ino-open So, parang yun yung pinaka-knowledge. Doon papasok na din yung cons niya. Na kaya marami yung mataas yung rate ng teenage pregnancy. It is because sa bahay pa lang, parang hino-hold ka na for enough knowledge dun sa bagay na yun.
Okay, so parang since hindi tayo nakakuha ng enough support or sex education here in the Philippines is not that great, there's a big tendency na yung kabataan especially magiging adventurous. Parang ganun, di ba? Na they will experiment things on their own and that might cause yung cons nga natin, which is mataas na rate ng teenage pregnancy, unwanted pregnancy. So, for me, aside from, knowing if you guys are sexually compatible, I cannot really think of anything na beneficial sa end natin.
Well, guys, let's be honest. Like, we're already talking about sex and premarital sex na, di ba? It's a personal fulfillment kasi. It boosts your energy, your happiness. Tsaka, for me lalo pag stress ka sa work, nakaka-relieve siya. Di ba Janelle?
Oo naman, I can actually attest to that. But please note na we're not promoting to do this for anyone that is not financially ready yet. Kailangan talaga may plano to. I mean, we're not promoting anything that is not gonna do any. I mean, that's not gonna be of positive result in your life. Okay, so let's just move on to our next question. So this is something personal now to the both of you. In the future, when you plan to start a family, how would you explain or educate your kids or your children about premarital sex?
That's a very good question, Janelle. Ewan ko lang sa ibang tao, pero ako kasi masyado akong open-minded. If you're gonna ask me a a straight question, you can expect that I can straightly answer that specific question. Now, as I mentioned earlier, hindi ganon kaganda ang sistema ng sex education dito sa Pilipinas. So definitely, we are lacking on that part. So what we can do, tulong na rin sa schools, saka sa gobyerno, we can actually start discussing or talking about just a pep talk with our children, right? About sex education. Hindi naman, yun kasi ang mahirap kapag nabanggit ang sex, premarital sex, or just technically sex dito sa Pilipinas. Ang negative kaagad ng dating. Alam mo yon. Pero what we have to understand is we really need to be open-minded para mas maibigay natin yung ideya sa kabataan. Kasi for me, if you're gonna ask me, if those children, yung generation ngayon, kapag they are more educated about sex, definitely marami rin siyang pros. Kaya wala tayong masyadong unwanted pregnancy, hindi tayo matatakot about that one, about sex itself, kasi we are well educated. Meron tayong enough knowledge. So, naiwasan talaga natin yung mga cons. But the thing is that, yun nga, masyado nga tayong relihiyoso dito sa Pilipinas. So, mahirap talaga. But, as I mentioned earlier, I am an open-minded person. If my kid will gonna ask me about sex, definitely, I will try my best to explain what is sex as good as possible. Yung walang mali siya, alam mo yun.
Tsaka dapat naman talaga i-normalize siya. Well, if I will be a parent, yun kasi yung wala din ako. Kasi my family is like the traditional one, the religious one. Pero look at me, I'm very open with my sexuality. Diba? So if I will be a parent, gusto ko na sa akin magmumula yung education about that topic kesa naman sa labas. Ano bang syempre kung ang kasama ng anak ko is ka-age niya, pare-parehas lang yung curious. So ano makukuha nila, di ba? Parang not enough knowledge, more on curiosity, more on taking risk. Na hindi nila sure kung hindi nila sure kung ano yung pwedeng mangyari after. Ikaw, as a parent, you've been through a lot. Mas alam mo yung mga pasikot-sikot about sex, about the pros and cons. So, dapat ikaw mismo, if mag-ask yung child mo or kahit na yung simple talk, just normalize it kasi walang mali doon. It is for my opinion. Walang mali doon. So, parang yun na din yung ilagay mo sa utak ng, or yun na din yung parang i-bring up mo sa anak mo. That is for me,
Well, valid naman ang points nyo, and I do understand that it's good to actually have to talk to people that's open-minded. But what I think personally for me, even though I've been repeating myself or we've been repeating ourselves na open-minded tayo, we also have to limit or I guess filter out the things that we share. Kasi there are some things that you really cannot share to an adolescent or a preteen or a teenager. There are some things that they will have to figure out by themselves. So for me personally, when I get to start my family in the future, definitely I'd share a thing or two about sex, premarital sex, and all the need to knows in order to be safe. Pero I would still put parang rules and regulations when it comes to anong pwede at anong hindi mo pwedeng gawin sa edad mong to. So with that, actually we're just gonna sum up everything. How are you guys with premarital sex? Do you support it or do you not support it?
I do support it. On my own perspective, I don't have any issues with doing that. The thing, as long as I am responsible enough, I can, take ownership of all the possible consequences na ma-receive ko kung sakaling, alam mo yun, may mangyari mang hindi mo inaasahan. As long as you're responsible enough, there's really nothing wrong doing so. As long as wala kang tinatapakang ibang tao, wala kang sinasaktan, there's no problem at all for me.
Well, I have the same views as Nell. Kita nyo naman sa previous answers ko, I support, I don't advocate, but then for me, it's okay to do premarital sex as long na alam mo yung pinapasok mo. Kasi once na ginawa mo yung bagay na yon, nandun ka na, dapat open ka sa possibility na you can have a child. And that in mind, dapat responsible enough ka. What do we mean by responsible enough? Financially, emotionally, saka yung pinaka-status mo, kaya mo bang support? Kasi pwedeng ikaw mismo, may issues ka pa, tapos biglang, di ba, parang lahat yon kailangan mo paghandaan, hindi ka lang go lang ng go. So yun ang para sa akin.
So technically, what we are trying to say is that we don't advocate premarital sex at all, but
just be responsible. Be responsible.
We advocate being responsible
actions.
and knowledgeable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pero may tanong ako sa inyo, kasi tinanong ni Jello kanina, how we will talk about sex to our offspring, sa mga anak natin. Anong gagawin nyo? Hihintayin nyo ba na magtanong yung anak nyo about sex, or you're gonna, proactively tell yung mga bagay na dapat niya matutunan without him or her asking?
That's actually a good question. And I didn't think of that as well. Pero kung if ever it comes to that time, I would say wait for that opportunity. Kasi technically as magulang naman, kahit sabihin natin na, kahit ngayon, ayaw natin na magulang natin na na gusto yung tinitingnan cellphone natin, tinitingnan mga gamit. Pero when we come to that stage na parents tayo, we will, out of curiosity and out of our concern to our children, we will snoop around. Na we will try to find out kung ano na bang nangyayari sa buhay ng mga anak natin. And I guess if I find something, like let's say, hypothetically we find a condom in the dresser or sa drawer ng anak natin, then that's when we should ask. Pero I don't think, or personally myself, I wouldn't ask na 13 na siya, kasi 13 din ako, dati kalibugan lang isip ko nung 13, yun na din ang i-expect sa anak ko. I won't think like that. I-ready ko ang sarili. I will wait for the time na either lalapit yung anak ko sa akin or I will find out something na nangyayari within my child's life in order to, yung parang isisingit ko to na, uy, may nakita akong something dun sa gusto mo bang pag-usapan?
So, ibig sabihin, correct me if I'm wrong, based on my understanding, you will not proactively ask your children about the thing, right? Sabi mo nga, either hihintayin mo siyang mag-open up or there will be an outside force na may makikita kang something or something that will make you think na, I think this is the right time to ask questions to my child. Parang ganon.
Pero siguro, for me, the best is to make them feel na you appreciate them, and then you're open, na you're there for them, na you're willing to talk about anything.
Approachable.
Na instead na kung may problema ka, if you're curious about things, you're the first person, ikaw yung best friend niya. Parang siguro yun yung pinaka-the best pa na pagkaka-summarize to. Para hindi mahirapan yung mga anak natin. Instead na kunin nila yung guidance or yung knowledge sa labas, let them feel na mas okay na ikaw muna. Na you're not judging them. Na you're open to talk about anything and to guide them.
Ang ganda naman. So technically, sa pagpapalaki mo talaga ng anak mo.
Which is actually, I do support that as well. Like with what I was saying na, kasi pag i-open up mo agad sa anak mo, I think somewhat they're gonna feel pressured na, okay, siguro to the extent na mawiwirdohan sila na parang Okay, bakit ganito? Bakit ganito na ang usapan? Parang ang shocker lang na ganun yung usapan natin. I guess, as we evolve, in society din man, as we evolve, our parenthood and how we deal with our kids in the future will change as well and will adapt. Kasi if we don't adapt, mapapalayo sa atin yun. Pero I'm actually veering off topic. Pero going back to yung tanong mo, I guess, lang siya, pace yourself. When the right time comes, when you have to discuss itong bagay na to, which is important kasi needed to for during their puberty stages. So I guess when the right time comes and your child is there willing to listen, then do it. Pero don't force it when ayaw makinig ng anak mo sa'yo kasi it's technically senseless. And don't as a parent, kasi hindi naman ako parent, pero if I wouldn't lose hope pag ganun, or I wouldn't feel frustrated. Kasi I'm sure that my son or daughter will have a support system of their own. Siguro tatanong din sa mga kaibigan or sa mga nakatatanda about those stuff.